listeners, happy closing day of the Riyadh Comedy Fest. If you've been busy protesting free speech violations in this country, it's possible you've missed some of the free speech restrictions in other countries like Saudi Arabia, which for the past week and a half has been hosting its very own comedy festival. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. Yes, you guessed it. I do have some pretty serious choice words for the Riyadh Comedy Fest and also the Riyadh Comedy Fest comedians who are largely imported from the United States. You can just look up who they are. We've all laughed at their jokes before. Many of them are super mainstream. We all know them. Got specials on your favorite streamers. I just feel like the only explanation I can think of for willingly performing comedy in a place that is so repressive of free speech is that you're using it as a place to workshop your material for performing comedy here at home in the United States, which is frighteningly starting to emulate Saudi Arabia's crackdown on free speech. As the old saying goes, if it plays in Riyadh, and I'm sure they killed the material. I'm talking about the material. Yes, I'm sure it was just great, hilarious. I bet you people were so busy laughing 24/7. They never had one free moment to pour one out on the 7th anniversary of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, which occurred during the festival. Anywho, good stuff, everyone. Freedom fighters. Oh my God. Free speech warriors. Of course, there's a massive payday for those performing at the festival. It's estimated, I think the top performers are making between $300,000 and over $1.5 million per show, which, I mean, that's compelling. I got 3 kids. College is expensive, but number one, I was not invited in. Number two, you had to cash in. You also had to adhere to their very strict censorship rules, which is so ironic because so many of the people performing love to tell their audiences at home that the woke left radicals won't let you say anything anymore. You can't even say anything anymore anyways. And I just extra love the argument that, like, you know what? I mean, it's not like our government's great. Look what we enable. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. But if our government offered me $500,000 to do comedy at the White House, I would also say no. Anyway, no one's asking. No one's offering. Trust me. But actually, I feel like now would be a good time for already wealthy people to say no to things and stand up for what's right. I don't know. Call me fucking crazy. What do you need? What do you need? When is enough? When is enough, folks? When the fuck is enough? Okay, sorry. I'm so mad. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest this week is author Michael Lewis, whose legendary book, The Big Short, is celebrating its 15th anniversary. This year, Michael is partnering with Pushkin Industries to make the audiobook for the very first time, in addition to a companion podcast on Michael's Against the Rules, contextualizing the relevance, still today, of the events detailed in Nelly, is it ever relevant? It's really good. I absolutely adore that guy. And guess what? There are still a few tour days left for my live show, How to Survive Menopause, which is touring the States right now. Go to samanthab.com to see if I'm coming to your neck of the woods. Until then, take a listen and make good choices.
Samantha Bee, the famous Samantha Bee.
The famous Michael Lewis, who I follow religiously.
I am just a writer. I can't be famous. So I'm a little bit of a funny state of mind. But before, so let's use this funny state of mind to make sure that all my tech is okay here.
That is it is very unsettling when someone calls you out of the blue and they're like, "Good news, you work for us now. Drop everything. And we need you we need you to do what you get paid to do for free right now. 7 minutes. Let's go."
This thing in our culture. I don't know. But people need to read more novels in college, and I think everything would be sorted out if they did.
Can I tell you something? I just said that to my son this morning. He's 17. He's going to college next year. I was like, you need to read more fiction. You need to learn just a few.
Yeah.
Nonfiction's great, but something a little more lyrical. Let's have some ideas. Let's be creative.
Feeling that you hadn't had before. But I'd actually think it is a kind of crisis in the society. I think if you look at Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and there's nothing ever reached their soul. And there's a kind of total disconnectedness from other people, and that you lose, that at least gets eroded inside you, that impulse, if you make a connection in art.
I agree with you on such a deep level. It's something I think about often. It's just like there's something prescriptive about sitting down with a book, and you have to follow the characters, and it takes you out of your mind, and it's just a different way to unspool your soul and kind of surrender to a story. And we don't often have that in life anymore, and especially kind of generationally now, people don't even really sit down and watch movies in the same way. It's kind of remarkable. Like it's hard to find someone who's willing to go get lost in something.
And I wonder if another way of putting that feeling of getting lost in something is adopting the point of view of others. That when you're reading a novel and you're in other people's point of view, and
yes.
If you don't, you can easily move through real life, just with nothing but your own point of view. And that's what you see on X, on Twitter. It's like constant my point of view. And
well, I mean, I've only read one book, and it's The Art of the Deal. And it's just, and I just, my library has 300 copies of The Art of the Deal. And that's pretty much, that's all you need, right? Lyrical stories of saving a skating rink in Central Park.
I don't think you even need to go that far. It's just something else.
I really do follow you quite religiously. I mean, you've been on my show. Like, I read your stuff. I've read maybe all of your books. I listen to your podcast. I love it. I really am just such a big fan. So I had to say that. I just had to say that. Wow, can you believe it's the 15th anniversary of The Big Short, of the book? That's crazy. I can't believe 15 years have passed since that catastrophe, and here we are barreling into more and more catastrophes.
And to me, what got me interested in doing it, aside from the fact that I got the audio rights back, and I hadn't read it, read it aloud, was that I feel much when I look at the world and filter the world. I'm continually reminded of that event, that I feel like we're still living in the world that event created. And you can draw, for example, I mean, this is just one example though. You can draw a straight line from the financial crisis to Donald Trump. But there's just so much came of that. And I think in the minds, especially of younger people, it's a thing that happened and it didn't matter. But it's actually shaped the world we live in.
Yes, they have they know the words, like the 2007 financial crisis. They kind of know, but they know it so ephemerally when we were all just existing in it and having a lived experience of it. And I very much agree with you that it's actually the perfect time to relaunch the book and the audiobook. I think it's a really important read and or listen and or both, because it really does set the table for where we are right now. I'm thinking about, this is day one of a government shutdown.
Yeah. It's 15 years of increased suspicion of institutions, decreased trust in government. And it's not like that all exactly starts with the financial crisis, but the financial crisis catalyzed some feeling in the country that like you can't trust the elites. That's what it is. It's you had this situation where the big banks and the people inside them who were paid more than anybody and who went to all the best schools and had all the privileges, they screwed up their businesses. In screwing up their businesses, they screwed up the economy. For everyone else, for anyone else in America, that would mean failure. That would mean you're out of business, you're bankrupt, you're doing some things that are kind of shady, you go to jail, whatever it is. And that the banks were bailed out, and that nobody went to jail, and that that the people who were in them got their bonuses, and it all just kind of motored on like even more like it was before. It just outraged people, and you can see why. I mean, there was a reason why it played out the way it played out, and there's a good argument for having bailed them out and so on and so forth. But it created the first thing that happens politically is like first the Tea Party, then the Occupy movements are created. These far left, far right things, and out of the Tea Party grew Donald Trump. And I think that like at the bottom of it all, it's mistrust or distrust, but anger. And this anger, I feel like the country I've lived in the last 15 years is angry in a way the country I lived in before was not. And I feel that anger grew out of that moment.
It for sure grew out of that, and is turbocharged by social media and by people being able to silo themselves and really not seeing any solutions on the horizon. Like, I mean, I literally opened the paper today, reading the Wall Street Journal, reading about all the banks that facilitated Jeffrey Epstein. And I just go, okay, like across the board, every investment bank just, I understand why people don't trust certain institutions. And I understand where those feelings come from. If you were underwater in your mortgage and nobody's coming to get you, if you were underwater in your student loan and your student loan is ballooning and you see no end in sight, I can understand that impulse. I think it's terrible for the country. And here we are, and we're in a student loan crisis. We're in a housing crisis. Is there any way that you could have predicted where we are now from where we were then?
God, that's a great question. Whenever I'm asked to predict anything, I just don't do it. Yeah. So I wouldn't have done it, right? So, because you just never know what's going to happen. And when Obama, they were all right. Like the people who ran the financial crisis from Washington, in some ways, did an amazing job. What would have happened if they'd run it, say, the way the crash of '29 was run? Is we would have had a Great Depression. We would have had 30% unemployment. We would have had an economic catastrophe that made what we had look trivial. So you can't. On the one hand, you can't. It's hard to argue too much with what happened. But there was a feeling in the air, and I can remember Obama saying something like, everybody wants Old Testament justice, and we're not going to have Old Testament justice. And I remember feeling queasy when he said that, because people were so angry. And I kind of, as awful as Old Testament justice is, that the culture kind of needed some of it, I think. And I remember thinking, like, if he doesn't slake that, something's going to happen. I don't know what, but it's like there is this feeling now that everything's rigged. It's rigged for the people on top, and it's not an unjustified feeling. And it's just like God knows what forces this is going to unleash. And the Tea Party, when they start to get elected, seem completely insane and beyond the pale. But it's nothing like where we've got to. So what I've predicted, like Donald Trump is president, and he's managed to seize on the anger in the population to sort of undermine all the norms of government and so on and so forth. No, I wouldn't have predicted that. There's another side to it. It's a little bit more boring side to it that was predictable. So the institutions at the center of the financial crisis were the big Wall Street banks, who made all these bad subprime mortgage loans and disguised the risk. And it was, Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and so on. And what has happened since is interesting. That combination of regulation and some other things that have happened in financial markets has basically caused all those institutions to be boring, much more boring. And so if you are the hotshot coming out of Harvard, Princeton, Yale, that's not where you want to work anymore. Mm-hmm. You want to work for these other places that are allowed to take the risk. So that is kind of should have would have that's understandable. This happened. It's probably right. This happened. Mm-hmm. That you're no longer allowed to take huge risks in these institutions that are essentially government backed, risks where you get to take the upside and then the taxpayer takes the downside. So it's a happy outcome, and that was predictable, but I didn't even see that coming. So your answer your question, no, I saw nothing coming.
But I guess less specifically, could you have anticipated that our national anger would have deepened to this degree? That there would not be like a resolution I feel like things are spinning and the singularity is near where we're just like, everything is accelerating. And I look at kind of crypto markets and I go, wait a second, whoa, my head is
This is
spinning.
Another thing, right? Bitcoin comes out of the financial crisis. Satoshi, who is cryptocurrency, Satoshi, the inventor of Bitcoin, embeds in his code all this nasty stuff, his hostility towards banks and the bailouts and all that.
Right.
And Bitcoin is, Bitcoin goes from a fiction. It is still a fiction, but it goes from zero to now $100,000 a coin. And that is almost a precise measure of mistrust in institutions. That's what it's picking up. It's like you go to Bitcoin because you don't trust the dollar, because you don't trust the U.S. Treasury, because you don't trust the banking system. You said something. I was trying to answer your question, but I didn't answer your question. You were saying, could you have predicted that it was going to spin up in the way it spun up? And I guess I'd say this, that it feels to me, so I would not have predicted it, but now that it's happened, and you always ought to kind of sort of beware of explaining things you could never have predicted. So you're sort of imposing a false sort of rationality on the whole thing. But it does seem to me that this mistrust of our own institutions and the people's mistrust of the government and our ability to sort of to live with this kind of dysfunction is a byproduct of peace and prosperity. That we're this way because we can afford it. If we actually face some serious existential threat, we would not allow ourselves this luxury. We would have to function. Right. So it's oddly a kind of a byproduct of something good, that we live in the most prosperous society in the history of the planet. A middle-class person in America now would not trade places with a middle-class person in America 30 years ago or 60 years ago or whatever. We don't think anybody's going to invade us and kill us. We're surrounded by oceans on either side. We've got a very privileged position. And so we can afford to screw up our government. Isn't
it interesting? Like, as you say that, I'm like, so many people do think that they would prefer to trade places with someone who lived 30 years ago.
I don't know if you.
We just have me. Oh, heavens, God, no. I'm not trying to dress as a trad wife. I'm not like running around in big high-collared German, flannel nightgowns as my
even those people,
wardrobe.
Even the people you have in mind there, if you showed them the medical system 30 years ago or 60 years ago, they wouldn't trade for that.
Right.
If you showed them their refrigerator in their kitchens without their marble islands, they would.
They're like, tell me about the nail art from 30 years ago. We're like, there wasn't any.
There you go. So it's a fantasy.
It is. It is.
So I think that there's a kind of, our dysfunction is a luxury, but there is something sincere about the anger. and the anger,
Right.
of course, it's not just all the financial crisis. There are a lot of other things going on, but it is a feeling. I mean, if you look at Trump's rhetoric, right from the beginning, the word that keeps coming up is rigged. It's all rigged against you, right?
Yes.
And this starts there. This idea that like the economy is rigged against you. And what's so upsetting about it is that it's not completely wrong. It's not crazy. It's unsubtle. It's missing the fact that like the elites really did a pretty decent job of preventing an even bigger catastrophe. The elites meaning the people in Washington, but it is completely true that it's unfair. It's like grotesquely unfair that these people got to do all this awful stuff inside these banks and paid no real price for it, while ordinary Americans, lost their homes and so on and so forth.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. One of the things I love about Indeed is that they actually have everything that you need to hire all in one place. All in one place. Let's corral it all in one place. Resumes, messaging, scheduling. No more posting on message boards, emailing resumes back and forth, getting lost, trying to keep track of who said what, who said it when. Indeed makes hiring simple, which allows you to hire faster. How fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SamB. Just go to Indeed.com/SamB right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/SamB. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
I mean, we're talking about themes that are repeating themselves, but when you look at the housing market, what do you feel it actually means to cut the interest rates right now? Like, what does it mean to everyday people?
I mean, all right. It's not clear to me that cutting interest rates are going to help anybody's housing problems. It's going to cause house prices to go up.
No.
Right?
Right.
I mean, it will reduce the interest rate you pay on a higher priced house, and it probably washes out as the same. It still is expensive. I think it's an illusion that lowering interest rates is going to like solve anybody's housing problems. The housing, the housing crisis is not it's not like something I spend a lot of time thinking about, but the financial crisis wasn't a housing crisis in the sense that it wasn't a response to like, there was nothing about it. Was people having too many houses, right? It was the opposite of what you're thinking about. It was literally the stripper in Las Vegas with 8 properties, all of which were financed by subprime mortgage loans. And all she had was her stripper salary, that kind of stuff. So in a funny way, you might argue that the financial crisis, if anything, helped address the housing crisis by getting a lot of housing built that shouldn't have been built.
Right. Oh my God.
I mean, I have to think about that, whether that's true.
Well, can we talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve,
Yes.
actually? Because you do talk about how important it was in stemming the worst of the 2008 crisis. But like today, it seems almost irreversibly weakened, or in a weakened state, or in a very, very threatened state. It's not like I need 10 more things to be worried about, but But I'm worried about that too. Like in the grand, in the spectrum of things you can be worried about on a daily basis.
When you worry about it, when you hear that Federal Reserve and you need to worry about it, what do you think?
Well, for me, because I do understand the necessity of keeping the controls of the Federal Reserve separate from government, because you look to other countries around the world and go, I don't think that, I don't know that I want this in the hands of Donald Trump and his minions. And I think like their independence, anyone being able to operate independently from this current administration feels extremely important to me. And so them exercising like just clawing away at it in any way they can, I find very threatening. I don't want like an inflated currency. I don't want to be one of those places where you go to buy like a pack of gum and they're like, that'll be 1 million American dollars.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't, my brain can't.
Which is what happens when politicians
Yeah.
get their hands on the money supply.
Well, yes.
And because their focus is short term, not long term. And there's this huge long term benefit to having a stable currency and trust that the dollar is not going to be too debased. And the benefit is lower interest rates and also stability in prices and all that. So in the financial crisis, it's interesting that we never seem to learn the lessons as our society moves through crises that we might have learned, like COVID. There are things we should have learned from COVID, and nobody can agree on what they are. But in the
I'll say this: we are short-term thinkers
this is a
here.
problem.
We don't have a good long game.
We don't have a good long game. In many ways, you can reduce Donald Trump's. If you want to put Donald Trump's consequences into a sentence, you'd say he has completely destroyed our long game for the sake of his short game.
Right.
And but it's so what happens in the financial crisis? All the banks. I mean, you could argue that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan might have survived, but basically they were all owed money by banks that weren't going to survive, and the whole system was going to collapse.
Yeah.
So everything freezes up. Like if there are no loans in the system, I mean, the economy freezes up. What's missing there? Trust and the feeling that someone can walk in and take this risk and assure everybody that it's all going to be okay. And the institution that did that was the Fed. It walked in and said, we can stabilize this situation. And it really didn't occur to anybody 15 years ago that guarantee was, there was any risk in that. They trusted the Fed in a funny way. And trust, it's funny how the form trust takes. The trust is actually when you're not thinking about it very much. You're not really thinking, oh, you can't trust the Fed. You're not in a war. You're not thinking about it at all. It was this institution that people took for granted could do everything necessary to backstop these bad loans. And so everybody calmed down. Some of the loans turned out to be not so bad after all. We kind of muddled through, but because the Fed could walk in and say, we'll make everybody whole here, kind of thing. And now that they were able to do that in part because they were independent, in part because it had this kind of credibility that was just, and it wasn't operating in politics space. It was operating in money space. And and it wasn't just the Fed, it was also the Treasury too. If you undermine the credibility of the Treasury and the Fed, if you do things like Donald Trump has done, saying things like, we might not pay back all the Treasury bonds because, some of that kind of thing. Or I should run the Fed. I should run the money supply. That you're sort of like removing the grown up from the room. You're removing the institution, or you're undermining the institution that can walk in a crisis and calm everything down. There's no bigger like supranational body that could come in and say everything's going to be okay if there's a run on the dollar and nobody wants to hold Treasury bonds and the Fed, nobody trusts the Fed. That's the end game. There's a history to this. like the Fed didn't always exist. It was created in like 1913 because people got tired of financial crises that had all these knock-on effects and that seemed unresolvable, that were left essentially back in 1913. J.P. Morgan himself had to come in and play the role that the Fed would eventually play. And the Fed, when it's created, it's unclear like how independent it's supposed to be. And it takes it a while. It takes it the lesson of the crash of 29 and the Depression to realize it needed to function independently and be willing to take kind of bold action. And so we learned all this. Like we learned all this over a century, and right now we're like forgetting it all. This is the odd thing, is that it is in many ways a spectacularly successful institution. You can argue a little bit about how the money supply is run. Like maybe you want less inflation. Maybe it should be just inflation they worry about and none unemployment. You can have those arguments, but the arguments all should take place within the context of, oh my God, thank God it's independent.
I need to believe that there are grown-up nerds who understand the whole picture of things. And that's why the dollars in my bank account are just pretty stable, like very conservative. I'm Canadian. I'm like, just dollar be okay.
So let me, you know what? And we should, and you say that, and I and many people think, yes, I feel exactly the same way. But you know what's interesting is since the financial crisis, we have created an incentive. And an incentive for now a lot of very rich and powerful people for the dollar not to be okay. And the incentive is called cryptocurrency. That the worst, and if you look at the Trump family fortunes, they've gotten very, they're driven now in large part by crypto. I mean, the biggest kills he's had has been crypto. The biggest money he's made has been in crypto. He's long cryptocurrency in all kinds of ways, he and the family. And, one way to juice cryptocurrency is to undermine the dollar. That we actually have, very weirdly now, a president whose personal financial incentive is to undermine the dollar, and that's unsettling. God knows whether he has actually made that connection in his head or if he just feels it.
Oh no, he hasn't, but somebody's made it for him.
But it's in olden times, say Richard Nixon times, there's always been this political incentive to undermine the currency to create short-term economic benefits that get you through an election. Like there's always been that incentive to pressure the Fed to be looser with money before an election than they should be. And so that's always existed. What has never existed before is the incentive to completely destroy the credibility of the dollar because you're along this alternative currency that was created in response to the financial crisis.
You know, this all goes back weirdly to being able to read novels, because it's very important to hold a story in your head for longer than the attention span of a goldfish. And when I look at Bitcoin, when I look at cryptocurrency, I just see it blowing up all over the place, just like the most volatile place to put your money. Just get rich quick schemes, meme coins that are meaningless, that are trapping people who are just trying to, like, you know, there's very wealthy people who are the real players, who are like the real, you know, who are behind the scenes doing lots of amazing things for themselves and enriching themselves. But the people who are just getting in there and thinking it's going to affect their life in some meaningful way are often just kind of getting caught, and they're the dupes and they end up with nothing. It's heartbreaking. And yet it keeps happening, these cycles that we can see, and they happen like rapidly, and you could see them like kind of like expand and contract, and still people buy Melania coins. Please explain. So
just listening to you,
just
listening to you, I'm assuming you don't have a Robinhood stock account and you're not trading meme stocks. You don't do that kind of thing. What do you do? Before I talk about what do you do?
Anything.
What do you do with your money? How do you invest your money? Yeah.
Me? In the most it's unimaginably conservative, and I actually forego any type of it's not wise probably to get the low returns that I seek, but I can't handle market volatility. I really am Canadian and very pragmatic, and I've worked so hard my whole life, and I just can't. I can't write it out the way
government
that
bonds
normal
and index
people.
funds and that.
Lots of bonds and index funds and real estate.
Isn't it funny though that you as a human being, you've spent your career taking lots of social risk. Tremendous, right?
Yes.
You're constantly
risk.
opening your mouth and saying something that could get you in enormous trouble and bankrupt you.
And honestly went down a career path that had no promise of anything. Like a chosen career path with absolutely no reason for success. It's pretty random.
When you turn your mind to your financial life, you freeze up and become a wimp and become a total wimp, which 100%. I do too. So I'm completely with you in how I live my life. I think to understand the Bitcoin world, imagine that you were in your financial life the way you are in your social life. So you had a similar sort of attitude towards the risk, like give it a whirl, improv finance, and that's what it is, right? And it's
improvisational finance.
Don't say no but to Bitcoin. Say yes and and Dogecoin, and that's the attitude. Now, let me just push back on you just a little bit on your.
Oh, please.
It isn't that I disagree with you, but just like for the sake of people listening who own Bitcoin, it is interesting that how quickly Bitcoin in particular, not the other ones, but Bitcoin has earned this social trust. In the way gold, gold doesn't make any sense either. Why do you hold gold? You hold gold. It's a measure of your mistrust of everything else. And and gold's been going up like Bitcoin. And it is completely true that the crypto universe is filled with snake oil salesmen. And the Bitcoin pitch has been so slippery right from the beginning, because when it's created to be, if the Satoshi idea was it was going to be a means of exchange. We were going to all go pay for our groceries with Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin people argued this in the very beginning. Then they stopped arguing that. Their latest argument about what it is and why you hold it is it's a better gold, that it's limited in supply. It's for whatever reason, it's acquired this social trust that people will trust it in really bad times, and so you hold it because it isn't everything else, and that's very valuable, like gold. Now, not stupid people own Bitcoin for this reason. I'm with you because I don't trust it. I don't feel that. I don't have that feeling, but enough people do, and institutions do. So I'm not sure it's smart to write off. I wouldn't bet against Bitcoin. I think I'd bet against all the rest. But it is just, it's so unsettling, because what it is at bottom is this response to everything else is going badly. And it is like, I can't trust the dollar anymore. We're Argentina. And it doesn't sit easy with me either. But if you are, let's say that fiat currencies, we're going to be one day in a world where fiat currencies are not trusted, and that inflation, it's going to take $1 million to go buy your Snickers bar or whatever it was you were going to buy with a pack of chewing gum. And what's going to happen with Bitcoin? It's going to go way, way, way up, and you might wish you had some. And you'll sit here wondering, why did I listen to all those people who said that it was all a Ponzi scheme?
I know. I just can't help but feel that the social trust that it has earned, or
acquired.
The social trust that it has acquired, comes more from just like brand repetition, like brand awareness. Like we just keep hearing it, therefore it's real.
How's that different from gold?
Well, I also just I don't have like bricks of gold in my house. I'm like, that's too heavy. Then what are you going to do? Were you running through the forest with a backpack full of gold? I'm not going to make it.
I don't know. You still look spry.
Maybe.
But you could say the same thing about gold. It's like, why do people invest such trust in this thing? And it is a great mystery. I don't know how far inside the human psyche Bitcoin has clawed. I don't know how much traction it has, but it does have institutional support now. Like normal people can invest in it without having their, crypto keys. And it's a remarkable thing. It's a disturbing thing and a remarkable thing at the same time, but you can no longer just say, oh, it's all nonsense. I don't think.
It's true. I know. I feel very generationally. I feel like a real old lady on my porch, like shaking my cane at the paper at the paper delivery person. Yeah. But I can't shake it. I can't shake the fact that if you lose your crypto key, that's it. You lose all your what? There's no backup plan. It's just like, hello, mysterious former Silk Road entrepreneur. Let me just
Can I float an idea? I just had this thought the other day.
Yes.
And I never heard anybody say it, but I'm sure it's been said many times, but I just haven't heard it. Satoshi, who creates Bitcoin. No one knows who he is still. Yeah. It's like they're like a couple of great mysteries on Wall Street, and that's one of the two. And it's when he created it, he mined him for himself the first million coins, which means as we speak, whoever Satoshi is on paper worth $115 billion, but he's never touched them. Here's a thought. The question is why? Now, one possibility is he's dead. Another is, how about if he just lost his keys? How about if you think about it, if you're Satoshi and basically you're a computer science guy and all the rest, and you're doing this as a kind of a hobbyist project, and you're also politicized and upset about the financial crisis, you create this thing, it's worth zero. So you're not thinking, oh, this is going to be worth each coin $115,000 one day. Wouldn't it be fun if he dashed it, I scribbled it down in a piece of paper, stuck it in a drawer, and then his housekeepers threw it out. That's what I hope. That's kind of what I hope happened, and that he's sitting there somewhere in Australia or in the Caribbean, like on a beach, poor, wondering where, trying to remember those last three digits.
Honestly, as a perimenopausal woman speaking to you right now, it's so believable to me. This makes so much sense to me. I forgot my own birthday one year. I forget stuff that is a miracle. So this really speaks to, Satoshi's probably just a 56-year-old woman who's like, God damn it. Every day.
Just trying to figure out the key that is locked to his bike.
What was the name of my first pet? It was Snowball, and the first street that I lived on. How did
What's my porn star name?
What characters did I put in it? Dollar signs, question marks. God.
So that's my hope for Satoshi. But it is. But it's on the list of things that come out of the financial crisis. Crypto is, it's high up there as an interesting thing. And the political stuff. So for the podcast, I've interviewed Steve Bannon and Elizabeth Warren for one of the episodes because both of them are, Elizabeth Warren was really interested in consumer finance before the financial crisis, and Steve Bannon was angry about certain things before the financial crisis. But what Elizabeth Warren did after, and what Steve Bannon got angry about after, was just, orders of magnitude more important. They were both hypercharged by this event. And and you talk to Bannon, and it's part myth, but I think partly true. Like, he thinks he wouldn't even be in politics if it wasn't for the financial crisis. That his dad lost a bunch of money. He came from kind of working class family. His dad worked for AT&T his whole life. He's got this fantasy in his head that, America is made up of people like his dad, the backbone of America are people like his dad who never
Sure.
did anything wrong and worked 9 to 5 and went to church and all that. And that these Wall Street people, of whom Bannon was once one, he worked for Goldman Sachs for 3 years, did this stuff that screwed his dad. And it he gets talking about it, it infuriates him still. And it's a kind of a too neat story a bit, but I think there's some truth to it that, and so like it's this welter of stuff just comes out of this event. And Elizabeth Warren creates the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is being gutted as we speak.
Oh, gutted.
But this is another thing, like the lessons learned. Sorry, you were about to say something, but let me just say this one. Let me make this one point.
So
the
please.
One point is, it was so obvious in 2010. It was so obvious in 1990, but it was really obvious in 2010 that this border between Wall Street, between high finance and all the complexity, and middle America, lower middle class America, needed to be policed. That, credit card debt, subprime mortgage lending, that it was so easy to prey on ordinary people with complicated financial stuff that people's brains freeze. Your brain freezes when you're you're talking about money, and that it's just so easy to fleece ordinary people that there's some need to regulate that. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is an extraordinarily successful institution. It's generated. It creates fear in the hearts of people who want to go screw other people, and that. So we thought we learned that lesson. There's no reason. Really good. I don't think there's popular outrage about, like, if you go to the Heartland, what the CFPB does. I think if you told them what it did, they'd say, "Thank God they're there. Thank God there's someone there to stop my bank from doing bad things to me." Or some weird lender from lending me, making some loan that I don't understand, that I shouldn't take out. And so there's not like there is a big political movement, popular political movement to gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. However, the lessons of the financial crisis were so poorly internalized that when people who would like to gut the CFPB come along, that 15 years later we can do it and nobody says anything.
Nobody says anything.
I
do want to talk to you about Doge because I mean, my God, and Elon Musk. But I have to say before we're already talking about it, but it's like I literally remember, because having lived on both sides of the border, having purchased a house when I was younger in Canada versus purchasing a house. We bought like a little property in the Catskills when we moved here, just to go out and be in the forest. And it was so hard for us to get a mortgage in Canada. It took so long for an institution to trust two performers, like two working performers, that we would come up with our mortgage payment. It just took forever, and we had to have guarantors. It was like a whole thing. And then I came to the United States and I asked for a mortgage, and the mortgage lender said, "What do you make every year?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, this much." And I was like, "I'll get you the paperwork." They were like, "No, that's fine." They just wrote down, I told them my income, and they just wrote it down, and it was just a fact. It was called a stated income mortgage. And all I had to do was say a number, and they believed me. I couldn't believe it. It was an incredible experience, which I guess that was 2006.
So that's a happy story. You timed it right. They were looking to make as many loans as possible, and it did.
As many loans as possible.
Matter whether you could pay it back or not. It didn't matter, because they were able to disguise who you were when they put it into big piles of mortgages with other people like you.
What?
And they would do things if they needed to. If you had been actually unreliable instead of just seemingly unreliable, that they would have done things like faked your credit score, or lied about your income, so there were all those sorts of tricks were being played, because what they were doing when they lent you the money, whoever it was selling your loan to someone else. They weren't taking any of the risk. They were getting paid a fee on any loans they made, and no one was vetting the quality of the loans.
Oh boy.
And
it makes me sweat just thinking about it.
Yes, it's Well, when you get to, what got me interested in this story in the first place, we go back to the writing of The Big Short, was it was mystifying to me that you collect the supposed smartest people in the country into these institutions called investment banks, and their job is to make money and be profitable, and they have all kinds of informational advantages in the marketplace. They're like almost like the casino. Like how does a casino go out of business? The odds are in its favor all the time. And plus then you staff the casino with all these supposedly extremely smart people. How did those places get so screwed up that they all went down? And because I worked on Wall Street, in the late 80s, and the Wall Street I worked at, it was true they were out to screw people. You didn't want to be their customer, but they didn't. They were really profitable. Like if they were making a bet, you would want to make it with them rather than against them. And here, all these big banks with all these smart people, the casinos, were making all these big bets, and they were the dumb bets. And what you really wanted to do by 2007 was be on the other side of that. Why? Now, how did that happen? And why is it that people are lending you money without really even knowing who you are, what you make?
Right.
And it's all incentives. It's all the incentives in the system got so screwed up that a trader on Wall Street, and a lender to you, was in a situation where it didn't matter whether you repaid the loan or not. That he was making money on what you were doing right now, and making so much that if 5 years from now it all went bad, he'd take that trade. He'd take his $50 million bonus now, and if the bank went down because of the bets he made 5 years from now, no one was going to claw the bonus back. He could move on to some other bank. It was so they all got. I mean, one way of thinking about it is, maybe strike you as a weird way of thinking about it, but it's not a bad way of thinking about it. Is essentially all these people in the financial system got paid to sell disaster insurance, but then pretend like they hadn't sold any insurance at all, and they got to just keep the premiums as profits, and so that that's a really odd situation to and what you were experiencing. You were on the receiving end of it. That's what you were seeing, is that everybody along the chain of the mortgage market was making money off the fact you had borrowed money. And if you turned out to be a deadbeat comedian, the losses were going to end with the American taxpayer.
And I do think that some of that, and also I felt like around that time, that so much of the blame for it was shifted off of the actual players who made it happen and shifted onto people who really couldn't afford mortgages, or kind of got caught in the dream of owning a home or a second home, or just kind of lived beyond their means. I felt like that they did a very good job of shifting blame onto individual borrowers who, I'm sure some of them were knowledgeable about it, but also a lot of pretty innocent people got trapped in things that they really didn't understand and hadn't done due diligence on.
That's
it's very complex.
The tens of millions of borrowers are a real mixed bag, but it's true. In that bag are a lot of people who just didn't understand that they shouldn't be borrowing the money. That if the bank is going to lend you the money, then that means you should borrow it. And it is generally the job of the bankers to figure out who should be lent money and who shouldn't. And they just abdicated the responsibility there.
Don't lend money to me. I'm just a dumb performer.
I mean, it's also true that, you shouldn't borrow money you can't repay. So that it's not like you can't just let everybody off the hook, but it is but you're right.
No.
The moral interpretation of the crisis changed over time. In the moment when people, and in the first couple of years when people were really paying attention, the story was these banks really screwed up. The elites really screwed up. And a lot of the blame should land on their shoulders. And over time, it sort of drifted to the corrupt moral infrastructure of America. Like people we need more personal responsibility.
Right.
But anyway,
are there players who kind of orchestrated or, played a major role in the financial crisis who are still holding the levers of power in institutions today?
It's a long time ago, and it's a young person's game. The person who's still around, who was central, but he was not really responsible. In fact, he behaved responsibly, was Jamie Dimon. I mean, he's sort of the best banker of his generation. The J.P. Morgan, I'm sure they did stuff they shouldn't have done, but they were the best behaved of all the banks, and he's still in place. Aside from that, the heads people at the tops of the institutions lost their jobs. There are two things that did happen. People at the tops of institutions lost their jobs, and that's not surprising. The head of Merrill Lynch, the head of Citigroup, the head of Morgan Stanley, the head of Lehman Brothers. Well, his Lehman Brothers went down. The weird thing that happened that you will appreciate is basically every woman in a position of responsibility on Wall Street got her head chopped off. That it was amazing how many women. I mean, an example. Morgan Stanley had a cluster of traders who just lost billions of dollars, and the decisions were really made by a guy. And but the guy was supervised by a woman, and everybody turned instantly on the woman. And there was this thing that happened. It happens. I do think it's like a rule on Wall Street. It's a male environment, but it's also a weirdly adolescent male environment. That you have some women around to make you feel like, I don't know, because you're supposed to. And then when things go right, the women are sort of like, oh, you're irrelevant. You're off to one side. All the rest. When things go wrong, Mom, how could you do that?
I was just going to say,
Mom, how could you do that?
You did it wrong. You're so stupid. Yes. Get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about.
I lost $10 billion because of you, Mom. And that's what happened. That happened over and over. And
it's a tale as old as time.
There were women who were like not allowed into the party. They were kind of adjacent. They were near the losses. Yeah. Who, when the money was being made, no one would have said, "Oh, we got to pay that woman a huge sum of money because she was." No. But when things went bad, oh man, she screwed up. And it was I never really saw much written about this, but there was a real pattern, and I'm not sure that has changed that much on Wall Street.
She's like, you dudes didn't even invite me to the golf scrimmage. Is that what they're called? I don't even know.
I don't either.
I don't think so.
That's not right. It's okay. Good try.
Okay. Thank you. I think I melded together various sports.
Yeah.
You haven't been shy about Elon Musk being a bully, and you have a book, Who is Government, that shines a light on public servants, and we are seeing just the government taking a chainsaw to the public workforce. We're going to probably lose a lot of people. A lot of people are getting furloughed. A lot of people they're threatening to fire so many federal workers in this government shutdown. I guess, how do you see this rolling out? Do you really believe that Elon Musk is done with government? Do we feel like that is Doge? Is that still operating in the shadows in some way? Are all those teenagers still?
I think Elon Musk's next brush with government will be on Mars. He'll be like in charge of the Martian government. Yeah,
please go to Mars.
Design the Martian government. I mean, he seems to have washed his hands of it. Who knows? He didn't do any of the things he said he was going to do.
No.
And he didn't even. What was odd about? I mean, there's a real mystery to Elon Musk's behavior, because if his stated thing was his stated goal was he was going to cut trillions out of the federal deficit, but he didn't even address. I mean, the part of the bureaucracy he attacked was like 10% of the deficit. Even if he'd eliminated it at all, he would have had a kind of trivial effect on the deficit. He didn't touch entitlements. He wasn't interested in the Defense Department. And so he was never going to do what he said he was going to do. So and he's not dumb. So the question is like, what was he doing there? Because he was never going to achieve what he said he was going to achieve. And I think I think the public attention is just a drug for him. I mean, I think it's just like more ketamine or whatever. It's like, it was just being on the camera every day, feeling important, having no idea what it was he was interacting with, thinking he could just take his approach to, I don't know, Twitter and impose it on, the Department of Agriculture, or that was going to work. It was all nonsensical. There is underneath it, however, Elon Musk isn't the important person. The important person is Russell Vought, who is the director of OMB, who actually has a plan, and as he says, to end the administrative state as we know it, or whatever. And and it is to drastically reduce the size of the federal government and the federal workforce. As he said, he wanted to traumatize the federal workforce. And I've now written 2 books, or book and a third. I wrote a book called The Fifth Risk in the Trump administration, and I edited and wrote a piece of this book that came out this year called Who is Government? And I didn't have any particular interest in government, and I don't want a government that's too big or anything like that. But I was just curious, when you take this hostile approach to government, what is it you're attacking? And so I have spent quite a bit of time now interviewing federal workers. And the headline is the idea, the stereotype that these are like lazy, inefficient, wasteful, corrupt people is insane. That the stories we generate, that I and 6 other writers went and found in a nanosecond for Who is Government, you can't read them and say, oh, these people are a waste of time. They're the best among us in many ways. They're these mission-driven, hard-working, some inspiring characters, a lot of them. And the idea I don't understand how our society expects to survive if we treat the best among us this way. But the problem is we've got this idea in our head, and it's a luxury that is afforded the wealthiest among us, that the best among us are the business people who make the most money. And it's just not true.
Well, we do conflate wealth with wisdom.
That's right.
Here on a really a remarkable level.
And since you've lived to both countries, in Canada, there's do you have this same thing where the Canadian people regard their own government as an enemy?
No. I mean, I would say that I think that there's the proper amount of push and pull. There's the proper amount of criticism, and you don't have to you don't love the government, and people are expressive about what they agree and disagree with. But I think in general, there's a greater degree of trust, but the status quo supports you more. So your taxes are very high, but your healthcare is provided to you. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But there are certain things that there is a social safety net, and people fall through it. It does happen. But generally speaking, people don't carry that heavy weighted backpack of going bankrupt from having to have a medical procedure. So there isn't that same schism.
Does anybody in Canada talk about the Canadian deep state?
Yeah, I mean, we have that certainly, but it's not. It's like nicer
deep state.
It's a nicer version. We definitely have, people have drink from the cup of Trump somewhat, and so that definitely exists. But for the most part, there's just a kind of a pragmatism, and also they look down south. They look across the southern border and go, "Oh my God! What are you doing?
Let's not do that." Yeah.
Let's not do whatever they're doing. Let's not do that. And that bore fruit in the last big Canadian election, where they just did a hard turn from someone who, exhibited Trump-like tendencies somewhat, just like a hard turn. They were like, let's go with this, like a normal person who understands financial systems. We need someone in charge. We need a grown-up. And that's what they got. So
but I think what we are experiencing here, with Trump's attack on the federal workforce, only is experienced it's only happening because the American public does not really have a very clear idea of what federal workers are doing. That there's a narrative problem, and it isn't a reality problem. It isn't like, oh, he's right. He's really wrong, but he's able to peddle a story because there isn't a counter story. And so the point of this book was actually here's some stories, 7 very different kinds of writers, no particular agenda except to find a great story. You read these stories and you tell me that these people aren't necessary.
Well, I have to let you go. And as I know you have other stuff you have to do today, what a damn pleasure talking to you. Honestly, I could do this for the next 18 hours.
I thought you were going to say for the next 5 minutes.
So.
I have
30 more seconds. That's it.
I could do this for 5 more minutes. Is that interesting?
I could do this for 5 whole minutes. No, it's really, I mean, your voice is in my ear a lot from your podcast. So this was a beautiful continuation of that.
Thanks for taking an interest. Not everybody does.
Oh my gosh. So interested. And good luck with the relaunch. This is exciting. That was Michael Lewis, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. We were talking about the Fed cutting interest rates, and I was curious, what is the longest period where there was not a rate cut? Turns out, from 2008 to 2015, the Fed had a near zero interest rate policy because of the financial crisis. Cool. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee, and we will see you next week for some more Choice Words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me, Samantha Bee. The show is produced by Svea Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Ryan Connor. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.